Today, we're gonna talk about why counting calories is a terrible idea. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before. Counting calories isn't exactly the best way to keep track of the food that you're eating. Here are a few reasons why that is. So the old way that they would measure food is they would put food inside of what's called a calorimeter. They would put food inside of a little container, put a flame underneath of it, and then they'd have a tank of water above that. They would burn the food, and then they could see how much that food heated up that water. And that's what they would figure out how much units of energy that food contained. Nowadays, they don't do that anymore because essentially they know how many calories are in each carb. They know how many calories are in a protein and fat and alcohol. So all those calories that you see on the nutrition labels are based on an estimate. And this gets to my very first point. The nutrition label is based on an estimate. So what they do is when you see a calorie count on the nutrition label, they take all the ingredients, they know how many carbs and protein and fat are in each ingredient. And then what they do is they just do the math and they figure out the calories. As you can imagine, anytime you estimate the calories, it's gonna be off a little bit. My second point of why calories aren't a good measurement is that how the food is prepared can change significantly the amount of calories that are in the food. For example, if you fry something, you're probably adding oil to it. You're essentially adding fat. Fat has a ton of calories. By adding that extra fat to the food, you're increasing the calorie count. Most people forget to count that extra fat that they're adding to the food. Not to mention, we don't know how much fat is left in the food after you fry it. Some of it gets burned off, some of it still gets absorbed into the food. So my point here is that how we prepare the food can significantly change the amount of calories that are still inside the food. My next point is not everybody digests food the same. Our digestive systems are all a little bit different. How you absorb carbs or protein or fat is gonna be different from the person next to you. And those differences can add up. If your body's not very efficient at absorbing carbs, that's gonna impact the amount of calories that you're actually eating. Again, we have another reason why counting calories is not a great idea. Okay, so we've talked about three reasons here. Number one, the nutrition label is purely an estimate. Number two, how the food is prepared can impact the amount of calories that we eat. And number three is how we digest the food is different among everybody. And we have not talked about number four yet, and that is the human factor. It turns out that we really suck at estimating the amount of food that we eat. When we look at food, we have a hard time deciding what a proper portion is. And there's been a ton of studies out there that have shown this. Turns out that we underestimate the food that we eat by a lot. So when you consider the human error factor to counting calories, that can make a significant impact on the amount of calories that we're actually consuming. Okay, so let's review one more time. The nutrition labels are an estimate. Number two, how we prepare the food can impact how many calories are actually in the food. Number three, how we digest the food is differently from everybody else. And then number four, the human error factor. How we actually perceive the size of portions can impact how many calories that we're actually consuming. So you can see we have four real big reasons why counting calories is not a great idea. Now we've talked about other ways that we can track our food before, but there's one important thing to understand here. At the end of the day, having a simple food log on what you ate and when you ate can have a huge impact on your weight loss goals. By understanding what we're eating and when we're eating can help us a lot. And it's amazing how often we get what's called food amnesia. We forget what we ate for breakfast, or we forget that we had that extra chocolate milk, or sometimes we forget that we had that half donut in the break room earlier. Food amnesia is a real thing. So instead of worrying about all the little details like the calories and the macros and portion sizes, simply just tracking the food can help you a ton. Just like I said in the macro video, I think it's a really good idea to learn how to count calories. But it's important to understand that it's not a very accurate method of tracking the energy that you're eating in a day. On a final note, the best way to track your food is what works best for you. And it's important to try different methods because you don't know what will work better for you versus somebody else. If tracking calories on a phone app works better than writing calories down in a notebook, go for it. If counting macros works well for you, count macros. If using the hand method works well for you, use the hand method. As I said before, it's important to experiment with different methods to find what works well for you, because at the end of the day, it's all about consistency, consistency, consistency.